Greetings, everyone. Happy Monday, February 2nd. We are into the month of February already here on the Wolverine podcast. Here every Monday night at 6 p.m. Anthony Broom, Chris Ballas, and Clayton Safey here. And listen, oftentimes we open with the how are you doing? Everyone knows how we're doing. Michigan goes down to East Lansing on Friday night, gets the monkey off their back, wins 83-71 over the Michigan State Spartans. The 7th-ranked Michigan State Spartans get their first win up there since 2018. Typically, we lead with football. This will be a basketball-heavy show. A lot to discuss when it, even aside from the game, the rivalry, as it tends to do, typically has spilled over a few days after the game. Dusty May and Tom Izzo had press conferences today with, I wouldn't even say trading barbs, just more fuel to the fire in what is perpetually one of the best rivalries in college basketball and one of the most headache-inducing as well. So we will discuss that. Your questions, of course, your super chats will put you right to the front of the line, no matter what the topic is, and we will, late in our show, as we do every week, take questions from the people. So, fellas, Clayton Safey, you particularly have had a glow about you since about 10:30 on Friday night. So welcome back, everyone.
Go for it, Clay. Talk about that glow, baby. That was fun.
Yeah, just ho-hum, right? You know, the better team won. I thought Michigan would win, and they won in, a smashing victory in East Lansing. The better team usually wins in this game, and that's what Michigan was. They outclassed them in more ways than one. They out-physicaled them. They out-rebounded them, even though it was evened up on the stat sheet. They were the bigger, better, faster, quicker, any adjective you want to use team, and better coached as well. I think Dusty May is one of the best coaches in the country. Tom Izzo obviously has accomplished a lot in his career, but just 2 top 10 wins in 1 week. It brings you back to some of those epic weeks in the John Beilein era that they were taking down, top 10 teams, 3 of them in 1 week back in 2014. And, so just a couple epic games there. Michigan and Illinois look like the best 2 teams in the Big Ten, at least right now, both at 10-1 in the conference, standings at the top there. So really, really exciting stuff. And it was a heck of a game on Friday from a Michigan standpoint. They went in and handled their business, and they just stayed composed, stayed poised, stayed above the fray, and were all about getting that win.
Yeah, there were 2 reasons I thought Michigan wouldn't win this game. One of them was you never know what kind of officiating you're going to get up there, right? Daimara almost had 2 early fouls. I think they changed one of them, if I'm not mistaken. Not having him for a good portion of that game would have been tough, right? So is that how it went? I believe
they never called it on Mara. They called it on Burnett. The announcers, I were rewatching, they got that wrong. It was called immediately. That's why they were booing right away. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, regardless, they overcame that, and Elliot Cadeau. There were 2 things. I thought Paul Sells' crew, and he's not a real welcome figure at Chrysler Arena. I think he was the only guy that ever threw John Beilein out of a game when John Beilein coached at Michigan for 12 years. So, but I thought they did a great job keeping control of that game. When it got chippy, it got a little ugly. They could have, frankly, called some more fouls on Jeremy Fears. And of course, Clay, you asked Dusty May about that today.
Yeah, that's going to come up here in a bit. So
yeah, I'll slow my roll on that, but that was fantastic. And I thought they did a great job keeping control of the game. And then I questioned whether or not Michigan had the alphas to go in there, like the Xavier Simpsons, like the Charles Matthews, like the Mo Wagners, the Nick Stauskises, and 2 of them really stepped up, and Elliot Cadeau and Yaxel Lendeborg, who played his best game in a long, long time. So, and I would argue that Trey McKinney did too, played as well as a true freshman there as anyone we've seen in a while, right? So he was fantastic in that game, played with a lot of confidence. So, but you were right, guys. Both of you guys were right. Michigan was the better team. Sometimes it doesn't play out that way when you go up to East Lansing, but it certainly did on Friday night. It was a pleasure to watch.
Yeah, and it was, I said this when we did our show on the court at the Jack Breslin Student Event Center on Friday night. That game, the recipe it took to win it, felt a lot like the recipe that Michigan State has used in this game for years to win it. I mean, nothing easy at the basket, held up on the boards, hitting the timely shots, especially with I mean, the last 4 or 5 times I've been in that building, it's been a double-digit Michigan loss or a lopsided Michigan loss, and they've all looked like the win that they delivered on Friday night, except in the inverse. So it was, listen, I mean, that's the most raucous place on your schedule you'll play. Purdue is right up there as well. I mean, Purdue, I mean, you could arguably put it 1A, 1B, however you want to do it. But, you know, to get that one to cap off the week that was, and I wrote this late on Sunday night, like to help you reestablish sort of what what the gold standard is, what your, championship contention standard looks like because those 2 games you played last week, and I know Nebraska's now lost 2 games in a row, but those 2 teams are the caliber of teams that you will see with a trip to the Final Four on the line, or, in the Final Four, in the right set of circumstances. So to play the way that they did, and I know the narrative, we'll talk about the narratives coming out of the game here in a second, but I know one of them from Tom Izzo was that it was bizarrely officiated. And the other guy probably felt that way too. Well, I didn't think the officiating was great either way, but Dusty May made a good point when he said on Friday that when they challenged the hook and hold, it was their way of establishing the rules of engagement and what was and wasn't going to be allowed in that game. And that was really kind of the sequence that set the tone for the rest of the game. Michigan's up 16, within less than a minute after that. Michigan State has to expend all the energy they do to come back, and Michigan holds them off and walks out of there with a double-digit victory anyway. So we will talk more about that game. We will talk about the fallout of the game from both head coaches who had some interesting things to say on Monday. And like we do every week, we will talk or take your questions at the end of the show. Before we do, we want to say again, we are brought to you on Monday night by our friends over at Rhoback. Use promo code MCH20 for 20% off your first purchase at Rhoback.com. You've seen us wear some of the Rhoback stuff that they hooked us up with in the last year or so here on the show. I mean, a great kind of hooded, kind of a hybrid hoodie t-shirt type of thing with a Michigan logo on it. You've got a polo shirt with kind of a pattern of the big house worked through it as a graphic. So that's pretty cool. Pretty awesome collegiate collection they have there over at Rhoback. And if you want to go over there and make a purchase on our behalf, use that promo code MCH20 for 20% off your first purchase over at Rhoback.com. So that's MCH20 for 20% off your first purchase at Rhoback.com. And if you have some Michigan State fans in your life who are sad or you want to do something nice for them, they have a Michigan State collection as well. So head on over there, use that promo code to get that money off. Well, okay. I'm going to let you two have the floor here for a second. I'm going to play more of the Elliot Cadeau point card here because I thought Monday's you two, I think, asked the questions of the Monday press conference today. Don't get the big head. We'll take a deep, long bow. But Clayton, you asked Dusty May about. I'll go to Clayton first because you asked Dusty May about the aforementioned Jeremy Fears and some of the stuff he was getting away with, including not an alleged trip. It just was a trip of Yaxel Lendeborg in the game that you were corrected on when you said appeared to. So take us through that back and forth with Dusty May today, and then we'll talk about that for a little bit.
Can I just say one thing real quick? I thought it was hilarious how Clay thought he was kind of took offense to the question. I'm sorry. And Dusty had to make it clear to you that, no, I'm not mad at you. He just had something to say. And I thought it was a great question.
Well, it was, you know what? And I'll just say one more thing here. Dusty May, a little bit of performance art in that answer. And you know what? Some earned performance art because we've been seeing that for years from the other side.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Yeah. So for context, I said it appeared that Jeremy Fears Jr. Tripped Yaxel Lendeborg, and he said appears. He said it wasn't an illusion. And I did it. I used the appears, like the crutch that a lot of reporters use. I did one of my own pet peeves. So no, I did apologize to him in the moment of, yes, that was not the right way to put it. But I think it made his answer even stronger because he snapped right back at it. And then he said, no, I apologize. But no, he made his point, right? That he was proud of his team for not reacting to a lot of different things. And like he said, it was all over the film. There was 40 minutes of it. Just go back and watch. It's not hard to find. So, and that's true, right? I mean, Jeremy Fears, that's how he plays. You've seen it over the last 2 years. Obviously missed a lot of time as a freshman, but last year when he kind of burst onto the scene, it was the posturing, it's the smack talk right in people's faces, it's things that other guys would get teed up for, and then the flopping, but not just that, trying to trip guys, and in one case tripping guys, right? He would probably snap back there and say not trying to, so I guess I'll say trip guys, right? So that's what he does, but it got a little more out of hand, I think, because he was so frustrated at just how good and how well Michigan was playing for portions of that game. He got even out of character for himself, which is, tough to do in a certain sense because that's how he plays anyway. So, yeah, I mean, the trip didn't get called. Some of the other things got called. The intentional foul on Yaxel Lendeborg on the breakaway layup did get called. It didn't get called when he kind of hip checked LJ Kaysen, he was trying to get up off the floor. So, it's just one of those things where that's the way they play. That's their program. I think Jeremy Fears is a really good and talented college basketball player that represents their program perfectly. But, the way Michigan just stayed above the fray, like I said earlier, was really impressive because there were some egregious and, as Dusty May said, dangerous things that went on in that game.
And a couple things. He took exception. Tom Izzo did to the late timeout. I think he called the timeout late in last year's game.
Twice, by the way. Twice. I did just screenshot this. I meant to send it to Megan, but forgot. But he did one with 48 seconds left, up 11 at Chrysler Center last year. And then he did it with 40 seconds left, up, I believe, 17. Again, I don't have it pulled up here, but it happened twice last year.
Were either of those, though, like the rolling timeout where you just sub guys in?
Couldn't care less. He called timeout.
I think that, to their credit, I think the second game was.
Okay.
Because those are different. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I'm clutching my pearls, and I give Dusty May credit here for doing that and telling his guys do not get pulled into the fray, because that's what they try to do in games like this. And when they lose, it kind of changes the national narrative to, ooh, look how nasty this rivalry is, and rather than we just got our ass kicked on our home floor by our rival, right? And it just happens all the time. The tunnel crap, remember, in football. And it's like, and I said this on the Huge Show today, it's like Tom Izzo said after the tunnel incident, not that anybody really cared what he had to say about it because it had nothing to do with basketball. He said, I'm tired of Michigan State always being the bad guy. And I'm thinking, well, then stop being the bad guy. Stop doing dumb shit, and you won't be the bad guy, right? I think it's pretty obvious. So, and really, to their credit, there was another play from Fears when he was on all fours there, and he hip checked LJ Kaysen, I think it was, and knocked him to the floor. And, some might say, oh, that was just a coincidence, or it just happened, and so on and so forth. No, it wasn't. And you could see it. It's like Dusty May said, there was 40 minutes of it. And the only people that aren't going to see it that way are probably the people in green and white. And there's one thing about being physical, guys, and being in a physical game, and I have no problem with that. When you play physical and you play tough, that's one thing. When you play dirty, that's a whole different argument. So it was what I expected, really, for the most part. But to me, to stay above the fray like they did, now you get them at home. It's going to be really tough, in my opinion, for Michigan State to win there on March 8th. Now, there are a lot of games between now and then, but to me, this was a statement game if there ever was one. And for all the talk about how Michigan hasn't been playing well and they barely beat Penn State, lost at home to Wisconsin, who was on fire. You know what? A lot of these games have been 12-point games, 10-point games. You take that any day. And as Dusty May says, twice on Sunday when you're playing in the Big Ten. So, and especially when you're playing at Michigan State. So it was fantastic. I loved his answers to the questions. And, he wasn't even asked about the pregame stuff, the vitriol, the FU Dusty chants from the Michigan State student section, which I thought really crossed the line. They were, that I would have been embarrassed if that were my son in a student section getting right in Dusty May's face like that. If it were Tom Izzo or anybody else, you got to stop. You got to take it down a notch, folks, because this is still just a game.
Let me just say this real quick, just to wrap up on the timeout. I have no problem either way with the timeouts. I have no problem with Michigan State doing it last year. I have no problem with Michigan doing it this year. I said at the time that I had no problem with Greg Gard calling the timeout that really ticked off Juwan Howard before that whole incident. Don't let somebody else, something you can't control, their decisions, how they manage a game, affect your own emotions or affect you. It's out of your control. You're losing the game. So that's why I'm just saying no, but I do think it is different. I haven't gone back and looked at the two timeouts that Michigan State took. I think one of them, they did have a break. I think you're right, Anthony. I just haven't looked at it. I do think it is, though, a little bit different when you do one of those ones just to get some backups in. But I I'm not defending, Tom Izzo being mad about that, because I don't think you should be in that circumstance.
Yeah, I'm choose my words carefully here. I'm not really upset with Michigan State's environment. I never have been. I mean, objectively speaking, I think I would kill for Chrysler Center, or a lot of people would kill for Chrysler Center to be as rowdy and as raucous as that place tends to get. And hey, tip of the cap, respect. I mean, I don't take anything away from how hard it is to go up there and win and deal with some of that stuff. That's, to me, that's sports. And when it comes to the Fierce, the Jeremy Fierce stuff too, I mean, the physicality and really even the foul baiting too. Like, Jalen Brunson has made hundreds of millions of dollars in the NBA doing that. He did it in that playoff series with the Pistons last year, masterfully.
Unethical.
Like,
he's an unethical scorer, AB.
It's part of the game. I hate it, but it is some of the extracurriculars, the tripping. Like, that's Grayson Allen. That's Draymond Green, which there's a through line there. Kicking a guy in the nuts, up 3-1 in the NBA finals. Like that. I don't know. I respect his game. I think he's a tremendous player. I think the way he kind of is the heartbeat for a roster that, quite frankly, isn't that good. And I want to talk about that in a little bit too, in terms of the question that Chris asked when it comes to the portal mercenary stuff. We all have some thoughts on that, but I wanted to talk about, I thought this was a bit of a disingenuous response from Tom Izzo after the fact, where I'll give credit where credit's due. Connor Eargood, former colleague of ours on the Michigan beat, now on the Michigan State beat, tweeted this out. He said, I asked Izzo about Dusty May's comments on fears. He says there were plays the other way too. And Izzo's quote was, there were some things Jeremy did I addressed, but him and their point guard were going at it pretty good. That's what happens in games like this. So if anybody did anything dirty, tell him to call me. Well, my response to that, and I tweeted this out as well, if there were things that Jeremy Fears did that Tom Izzo felt he needed to address, then why does that concern need to be raised, or need to be raised via a phone call from Dusty May, who, let's be honest, if Dusty May called up to the bat phone in East Lansing, it wouldn't get answered anyways, or he'd get an FU when the phone hung up on him. So to me, that's just all, it's more of the, it's more of the performative stuff. And I think over the years, I've been pretty fair when it comes to Michigan State in terms of, trying to tamp things down and give, to a certain extent, them the benefit of the doubt. But the one thing that has become so tiresome over the years, and the through line is often that it is something that comes from Tom Izzo, it's saying something so wild that, like, I start to doubt what I saw and what I believe. And that's what he has kind of specialized in over the years, is making statements with such conviction like that you're like, oh, well, if this guy who's, been at the helm for a couple decades and has a long career doing this feels that way, maybe the guy on the other side of it is wrong. And that's just not the case. And it rarely has been.
No, this rivalry brings out the worst in him, right? And it always has, going back to the Chris Webber thing. And he got robbed out of Chris Webber, that Michigan paid for Chris Webber, when Michigan State was really the logical spot for him and was probably the leader in his recruitment. This goes way before you guys. And the reason that he ended up at Michigan was because of Perry Watson. It had nothing to do with money. He took Ed Martin's money and was laundering it unsuspectingly, apparently later, in loans and stuff like that. But that had nothing to do with the reason that he went to Michigan. And they know that, but he plays that as a chip on his shoulder. And he says he's never going to get over it. And you can tell, when he says before the game, it's a hatred. Yes, I hate them and they hate me. I don't hate anybody. There are a couple exceptions, but I don't hate Tom Izzo. I don't hate Michigan State. But it's hard when you says, but you will respect me. Well, I'm not going to respect you when things like this keep happening. And I got crap from Michigan State fans. I gave all kinds of credit to their team before the game and how well they play together, because as you said, AB, that is not a great roster, but how they play together and as one and as cohesive as they are, that's a very well coached basketball team. So you give them credit, but I don't have respect for most of what I saw on Saturday night or Friday night. And how are you going to after that? And again, here we go again, talking about this crap when we should be talking about just how well Michigan played and Elliot Cadeau and his shooting and Yaxel Lendeborg becoming like Yaxel Lendeborg again. And those are the things I want to talk about. So, and another one was the handshake, the blow by handshake. And he said, if you look, it probably was the same exact thing last year in both of our wins. And no, it wasn't. It was Tom Izzo, oh, gee, shucks, and like talking to him for a second. But when he loses, he does the blow by. And then it's, I don't care what Dusty has to say. And I wrote a column exactly on that, AB, just before we went on the air here, that he wasn't going to answer the phone if he called. He doesn't owe him a phone call, and he shouldn't. He shouldn't call him. He kind of laughed it off. No, I didn't call him. Why would I do that? Because all it's going to do is, like you said, he's either not going to answer or he's going to cuss at him or whatever. I love the fact that Dusty May is not backing down here. I love the fact that he said what he said. I can promise you there are other past Michigan coaches that would have probably loved to say the same things, but thought better of it. And Dusty May has proven that, hey, literally, we bow to no man, right? Whether you've been here for 30 years or whether you're here for 5 years or whatever, and that he kind of takes this personal already. So, but it was a moment when you go out on the court like that, fellas, and you sit down in front of the student section and you're taking that heat and you're taking the smoke, then you better be able to back it up, right? And I really thought that really helped Dusty May own the night, own the moment, and really made an impression, not just locally, but nationally, as to who Dusty May really is.
What I found hilarious is when Tom Izzo was asked about the handshake, he said that you guys, towards the media there in East Lansing, are trying to create a controversy. And he said, oh, let's see, what else could be controversial, as he said it. He's like, what about the timeout? I'm surprised no one asked me about the timeout. It's like, you just are trying to now make a controversy over it after you just got mad at them for trying to make a controversy out of things. So if that's not, if that's not that coach right there in a nutshell, but I do think just going back to the game, I think, Chris, you mentioned Elliot Cadeau, Yaxel Lendeborg, and then Trey McKinney played his best ball. I would add Merez Johnson, without the stats, played about as well as he could have. And if that layup towards the end that just kept going around the rim and didn't goes in, he's at 14 points and however many rebounds he had, and then the stat line looks better instead of 12. But his defense was elite. Michigan had its best players all step up. And then as far as you guys saying that Michigan State's roster isn't very good, I mean, they got 4- and 5-star recruits all over this roster. I mean, Cohen Carr, the number 23 overall recruit in the country, is now an upperclassman. So he should be very developed now in that system. And they got transfers all over that roster as well. Same amount of transfers as Michigan. One of them in their starting lineup that started the majority of Miami's games last year, a high major transfer. Michigan, of course, last year with a bunch of mid-major transfers. But I mean, Jackson Kohler, a super highly rated recruit as well. Jordan Scott, top 55 overall recruit as a freshman this year. They got blue chips all over that roster. So this is, a really, really good team, a talented roster. And, if you don't like your roster, if you're a Michigan State fan, then, I guess you got to recruit better and do it the right way like Michigan did.
One more thing, Clay, when he said he tried to compare the Will Cheddar foul when he jumped and got somebody in the air to the fear. Yeah, he's like, oh, let's talk about that. I'm like, no, you're missing the point here. That wasn't a dirty play. That was just a guy getting a guy in the air. Maybe it should have been called. Maybe it shouldn't have. He leaned into him. Yeah, he got the call. That has nothing to do with intentionally tripping somebody. So unbelievable, but so believable.
I will say it's unfortunate that Izzo didn't seem to know what Dusty said when he got to the podium, and then he kind of heard it, and he didn't get a full explanation. I don't think the reporters in East Lansing had actually listened yet to the full thing. The question that I asked was about the trip. Like that was the beginning of it. He wasn't just coming out unprompted and saying there were a bunch of dangerous plays. So a little bit of that got lost in the game of telephone, but that's kind of how it works. But it would have been interesting if he actually was confronted about the trip. Izzo, does he know about it? Did he see it? I mean, he had to have watched the film. He has to know. Or was it even – is that just how Fears plays, where it doesn't even ring any alarm bells around there? That would be alarming, actually, for that program.
I do want to give him the benefit of the doubt when he does say that there were things that he did address with Jeremy Fears. I don't know what any of that is, but I would think, now this is me being logical, not always the case, but I would think the trip is probably one of those things. Or, hey, next time maybe trip him harder. So I don't know. I'm playing devil's advocate here. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was something that was addressed. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt there. But I want to
why did he act confused? He acted confused as to what any examples could be.
Because that's what he does.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when he has a press conference, he holds court and when he wins, it's a pep rally, and it's Chris. Every time he has a winning press conference, it reminds me of our buddy Kurt Signetti at Big Ten Media Days, like the A. But then when he loses, as they did Friday night, it's this woe is me, woe is us pity party.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in on about 7 minutes of that. It was going on for about 5 minutes before I got there, after we met with Michigan players down by the dock, down by where they get on the buses. So the best thing about him, if you're a Michigan State fan, is that he's an intense competitor and that he loves to win and he takes winning hard. But the flip side of that, the objectively speaking, is that he is an incredibly sore loser. And it's each side of the spectrum when the results go their way versus when they don't, which I don't even have a problem with that. It's who he's been for decades. Now, I want to go now to Chris, your question, because now I want to point the microscope here at the Michigan State media. And I'm not doing media war stuff. I'm not calling out anyone specifically, but oftentimes, a lot of the narratives that kind of get thrown out there from that side of the beat, so to speak, is some of the talking points that may not even be happening publicly, but a lot of people feel. And now I'll say this, my brother-in-law is a Michigan State fan. I have friends who are Michigan State fans. Mike Valenti went on the radio today, said the same thing that they said to me, in that, hey, lost to a better team. Like, that's a title contender. Michigan State's probably a Sweet 16, maybe slightly better if they get the right draw, which is, I think, most objective people's view of how that game went on Friday night. But this idea that, one team is building it the right way and the other one is building via portal mercenaries or these highly paid ringers, which, you can find where that quote came from pretty easily. I think that is one of the most disingenuous descriptors of the current state of college sports and college athletics in general. First of all, I don't think that Michigan State people have a leg to stand on when it comes to criticizing how a program is built, how money is spent, when 2 wins over Michigan on the football field and Kenneth Walker led to you giving Mel Tucker $100 million. So if we want to have the debate about a smart allocation of assets, we can have that debate. I would just turn around and say this, and Chris, I'll let you kind of address what your question was and what Dusty May said. I think that when it comes to the way the juxtaposition between these two programs are built, I think Michigan State fans, if they do feel that way, should instead feel gratitude. Feel grateful that you do have a throwback program where you can lean on decades of culture and you recruit very well. And there's no doubt in my mind that even if Michigan State winds up in a little bit of a rough patch here, which they tend to do this time of year, Tom Izzo is going to squeeze every single drop out of that group because he's a tremendous basketball coach in terms of taking his team as far as they could probably realistically go. You need to be grateful for that because that is fleeting. Because when you have a steady hand or 2 steady hands at the helm of your ship, and they won't like that I make this comparison either, but we saw how quickly that can flip from, say, a Jim Harbaugh to the next guy in line. The glory days can dissipate like that. So you should be grateful that your team and your coach and your program are as strong as they are and your way still works because let's be honest. I mean, we're getting closer to the end of the line here than we're not. And I hope that's just how I feel about it. I'm not going to, we can address the Michigan side of it, but I just feel like there should be a little more, maybe self-awareness in that discussion.
And I more compare it to when Lloyd Carr stepped down and then we need something fresher and this and that. And it was Rich Rodriguez. And you're like, oh God, Michigan was able to bounce back eventually because it's Michigan football, right? My Michigan State fan friends are like, what are we going to become when Tom Izzo is gone? There's really no heir apparent. Obviously, this is a great program that has, for the last several decades, been more than relevant. They've got the impressive streak. So you can't take that for granted. And he is a good basketball coach. But to sit there and criticize somebody for building a team and winning the way they are, and calling them high-paid ringers and mercenaries, you're just looking for attention. And Jim Rowan, 9869, first time listening live. Keep up the great work, guys. Go Blue. Fears is a dirty diver. It will cost them a game later down the road. It very well might. It is the way he plays. It's pretty interesting, right? We knew about the flopping. I didn't expect to see the tripping and stuff like that, Jim. But regardless, getting back to your point there, Anthony, for people to say that, and I could sense it when I asked first about the reaction of the Michigan fans, and you could tell that Dusty wanted to talk about it. He's the one that brought up the mercenaries initially, and I'm thinking, okay, this is something that he really wants to talk about. I said, it seems like he'd take it personally. And he goes, absolutely, hell yes, I do. And then he went into why. And it's like he said, first of all, they don't just go and get the most talented guys. They need to make sure that they fit. Yaxel Lendeborg is a great fit. He could have gotten more money going other places. Merez Johnson, the same thing. These guys, it's almost like Indiana football where Curt Cignetti took exception to, okay, you paid for your roster. And he's like, well, it's not nearly as much as you think it is. Guys want to play here. And Dusty, without saying it, he actually did kind of say it. He said, look, our style of play here, we play fast. We tell them that. You might have to sit a little bit more than you would have, but you'll get more opportunities because there will be more possessions, and people buy into that. And you can tell, like he said, what great people these guys are, how connected they are as a team. If you got a team of paid mercenaries, guys, you're not going to have that. And that's 2 years in a row where the culture has been fantastic. So the fact that we're even talking about that kind of pisses me off, because it's just basically a talking point for people who are jealous of what you've accomplished in a short time. They probably thought they were going to own this rivalry for a long time, right? When Juwan Howard won 8-24. Instead, you get a guy in Dusty May who happened to coach down the road at Eastern Michigan, who wanted to be here, was basically watching to see if it would open up. And when it did, here he is. So the guys he's getting, we heard crap about Elliot Cadeau, and he knew that was the point guard that he wanted, and people were giving him crap for that. And look what Elliot Cadeau has done and the player that he's become and how much he has improved under Dusty May. So it was a joke. It really was. I felt bad that it was out there, and I wasn't even going to bring it up until he did, just because, guys, you could tell that he was chomping at the bit to talk about that, and I couldn't agree with him more. We've interviewed these guys plenty. These players, none of these guys look like they're here for the cash. They are here having a blast in college. And it's like Dusty said, I go back and I talk to these guys at other schools that left us, and they're still friends. I don't blame them when they leave, and I wish them the best. That's college basketball now. It's like he said, it's not changing. So if you don't adapt, then, hey, maybe you get left behind.
He's so in tune with what people are saying, like, because none of this was even coming from any other programs, but he's able to kind of hear that this noise, and that's all it is noise, right? If this is what you're being criticized for on February 2nd or January 30th, the day of the game, then you're in a pretty good spot, right? They're 20-1, and they're number 2 in the country. They're 10-1 in the Big Ten. They are a threat to other contenders out there. And as he said today, everyone would rather us just come in, sign a bunch of freshmen, and lose for a few years, but the expectation was to win in year one, as he said at his introductory press conference, and he delivered on that. So what is he supposed to do? He said on his pregame radio show with Brian Bush, he said that it's hard we're being criticized for not having 4th and 5th year seniors in a year and a half in. He said, don't tell that to Michigan State fans, that it's hard to do that a year and a half in. So he basically had no roster when he got here. What was he supposed to do? Then he got some transfers last year that either ran out of eligibility or ended up being a first-round draft pick because they developed a kid from Yale who couldn't finish through contact and couldn't play defense, according to other people that recruited him in the portal. So they've done a remarkable job in a little over a year and a half here. There's a lot more big games coming up that Michigan is going to probably win, and a potential deep run in the tournament. But yeah, you're in a hell of a spot if this is what people are worried about.
Well, I mean, hold on. Am I muted here?
Nope.
I'm not muted. Sorry. I muted myself for a second. But I mean, what would the alternative be? I mean, doing the Fred Hoiberg thing where you win 7 games your first 2 years, and then I think year 5 or year 6, you win the college basketball crown. And now all these years later, now they actually have a good team. Is that the right way to do it now? I have respect for Hoiberg and what he's done. I'm not saying that he's done it wrong. Just, I think that there are more ways to build a roster now than there ever have been. And Yeah, it almost doesn't even need to be defended, because the premise that something wrong is being done is, again, it's one of those things you're like, wait, why am I even defending this right now? Which is the type of debates that the Michigan State side of this specializes in. So again, I don't take the bait. I don't like to take the bait when it comes to that sort of stuff. But I mean, Dusty May felt compelled to call it out, so I have no problem doing it today. That makes me the type of hypocrite that some of the people that parrot Tom Izzo's takes are, so be it. But that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, and it really is there a small segment, like you said, you've got Michigan State fan friends. I do too, but there's a couple small pockets online that where the vitriol is absolutely nuts, and you try to say, okay, that's not indicative of the entire fan base, and I know it's not, because we break bread with some of these people, and maybe what they say to each other is a lot different than what they say to us. It's kind of like politics, right? It's just something you don't talk about. And when you get together with your friends or over a family dinner or something like that. So you got to be careful not to paint with a broad brush. And I've done that in the past, and I apologize for it. We're saying, boy, all Michigan State fans are this, or all Michigan State fans are that. They aren't. But there are some absolute nut jobs out there. And I don't hesitate to say that about the Ohio State fan base when it comes to football. So anyway, what's next?
Any other final thoughts? Sorry.
No.
I didn't expect to go almost 40
They're
minutes.
crazy.
Today,
Those people are crazy everywhere.
I have a final thought. Michigan scored on their last 9 possessions. Dusty was dialing up some ridiculous sets. Like, they don't love running sets. They'd rather just kind of read and react, but he realized that's the type of game they were in. And he's an elite. I mean, I know Akeem Miskadeen is a big part of the offense as well, but I mean, Dusty just, put on a clinic, and so do those players. The pick and roll at the end, the finishes at the rim with Merez and those guys. It was a clinic, man. Again, that's why there are sour grapes out there, is because this is a threat of a program nationally.
It was a clinic for like 30 or 40 minutes.
It
got a little hairy there in the middle. I mean, they trailed in that. It's crazy to think about. They won by double digits. They trailed 10 minutes left in the game, or whatever it was.
7 minutes left, and they outscored them 26-12 after that point that they trailed. Will Cheddar, how about Cheese?
The underrated, you just beat me to it. The underrated play of that game. That was not an in rhythm 3. That was you're down by 2, and he steps up, he hesitates, he pulls it without hesitation after that on the second time and just buries it. I thought LJ Cason's was big too. So there was every guy who played in that game had at least one key play, but Merez Johnson's finishes down the stretch, the flush, and then the adjustment to the left hand was fantastic. I love watching him play. I hope we get more than one year with him, because that was a blast. So Trey McKinney, I'll say it again. A lot of freshmen have gone in there and wilted under the pressure. Not him. I think Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman had a really nice game up there.
He did.
Yes, as a true freshman. There are a couple that come to mind, and he had a little fadeaway post up. He had a triple, and he did not look intimidated. These guys were well prepared. They went into battle. As Dusty May said, we expected to win. They went in there and they did it.
And 2 things Trey McKinney did that are underrated too, besides the big shots he hit. Twice, Jackson Kohler posts up on him. He gets switched on him. Fadeaway jumper instead of going into him, missed both. I mean, that Trey McKinney's special, and he's playing more now in second halves. That's double-digit minutes in 3 straight second halves, and double-digit points in 4 straight games overall. He's starting to earn a bigger role, but I mean, he just has accepted his role and it just gotten better and better, and the sky's the limit for that kid, and he'll be here multiple years too, which is exciting.
Michigan and Michigan State will renew their rivalry at Chrysler Center on Senior Day on March 8th, I believe it is. Not going to make any comments, not going to plant any flags, not going to make any declarative statements about what may or may not be on the line. But that one, as they all are, will be heated. Big week ahead for Michigan. After an extremely productive week, you're going to play a Penn State team on Thursday night at Chrysler, where they were a shot at the buzzer away from maybe knocking you off and changing the trajectory of this whole thing a couple weeks ago. So need to defend that. You go back to Ohio State on Super Bowl Sunday, which should be a nice little matinee shot at revenge for the Buckeyes, who I thought played a pretty good game in Ann Arbor on Trey Burke night until Michigan pulled away. So it's all about locking back in and keeping those championship habits intact, because they like I said, they reestablished that on Friday night. Incredibly impressive win. Incredibly impressive week. Super work by Dusty May and his staff. Super chat here from Michigan Go Blue 1324. I got it right this time. Thoughts on the matchup with Ohio State Sunday?
We just saw it, right? How you defend them and what you have to do to make their shooters uncomfortable. So I thought they battled Ohio State. I thought they brought the fight to Michigan initially in that game, and they're not going to wilt. So you're going to have to bring it. You got to you got to be more physical. And I thought they really stepped up in that department against Michigan State. So any Big Ten road game is a tough Big Ten road game for the most part, as we've seen. Michigan State went to Rutgers. So more than anything, though, I'm looking at Penn State, and I asked Dusty May about that because that was a tough matchup for them the first time around, and they were missing one of their better players. This is a better team than given credit for. I get the record. I see it. They've had some blowout losses, but they have played a lot of teams tough, fellas, and I was really impressed with them in their effort the first time against Michigan. Didn't go away even when they were down 14 points. Came out swinging. They really got on the glass. They took it right at Michigan's bigs. I thought that they weren't intimidated. So these are a couple of games now. You can't let your guard down here just because you beat Nebraska and Michigan State. These are two games that you got to take pretty seriously. So, but I expect Michigan to win both.
Yeah, Caden Mingo didn't play in the first game. Their starting freshman point guard is really good and hit the game winner against Minnesota over the weekend. Might have traveled, might not have, but Urich, the kid who hit a couple threes on Michigan, the stretch big, that really, it was one of those signs pre-Wisconsin game that was, the pick and pop, what we all thought coming into the year. Finally, you saw some personnel that could get Michigan on that. He is out with an illness right now, had 103 fever in their last game. So we'll see if he's able to play. Thursday, still some time here for him to get healthy. Ohio State, I'm hard-pressed to believe Bruce Thornton's going to shoot 3 of 11 from the field again. So I think you're going to get his better shot. They got to figure out an answer for John Mobley, who's kind of like the Steph Curry, Keisei Tominaga of the Big Ten. The dude's a bucket, and he's a jitterbug out there. He's tough to deal with. So Ohio State's a tough team to guard, man. And especially, they're going to be at home. They're going to give Michigan their best shot, just like every team is, especially on the road this year. So they better bring it for that one. But, yeah, I think Michigan, their players, they kind of were talking about Penn State, at the time of that game, almost as a loss, even though they won by 2. I think they're going to be really motivated to come out and prove that they are much better than 2 points, a little better than Penn State.
I just know this. I hadn't even had my morning coffee on Saturday, and Clayton texted me that he was already worried about Freddie Dillion's mid-range jumpers. So
yeah,
that's how quickly
you got to move on. You got to move on.
That's how quickly you turn the page this time of year. All right. Well, we have a little extra time here than we typically do, so we'll move right into questions now. We'll start with a basketball question from the chat. I'll go to the fort and get some of those here in a moment. It's from Ryan S2004 -W70, which is a mouthful, who says, is it time to start Trey McKinney over Namari Burnett?
I like him coming off the bench and providing a little bit of offense, right? And it's kind of like Vinny Johnson, the microwave with the Pistons way back in the day, again, before your time, fellas. But when you have that, you can go to that to spark your offense. I feel really good about that. Burnett, again, the best thing about it, somebody said after the game, he was as happy as anybody against Michigan State, even though he only played 13 minutes. An unbelievable teammate. And there are going to be games in which you're going to need his three-point shooting too. And I thought he defended pretty well. But it's a fair question. Trey McKinney is obviously the future. And there are going to be games, though, where he's going to play 27 minutes or whatever, even if he doesn't start. So to me, it's not about who starts. It's about who finishes and who gets the most minutes.
You guys know how many minutes Namari Burnett played last week in 2 games?
I know he had 13 against State.
Yeah, I think it was officially 12, but 33 total. Okay. 21 in 12, barely any in the second half. He sat for the last 16 minutes, 39 seconds against Michigan State. But that does not make me think that he's like going away anytime. By the way, after the game, when we were in the tunnel interviewing players, he had the biggest smile on his face, dapping everybody up. He's a team guy all the way, which I thought was really cool to see after a night when it was other guys were getting the shine. Other guys were getting the opportunity. But no, I feel like Namari, Trey McKinney's a better bench piece. He's going to add that spark. Namari Burnett's more of like, in the flow already, kind of usually hits some threes early on in games when he gets going. He hasn't gotten going as much in terms of, those hot streaks shooting this season. And I feel like some of the clutch shots too in second halves when they're down 3 and he hits, attempts a 3, he seemed to always make them. But I think it'll come around. But the good thing is between Roddy Gale, Trey McKinney, and Namari Burnett, you have options. If one guy doesn't have their game one night, then you can just go to the other ones. The other night it was, the Nebraska game, Roddy Gale took a back seat. And then in the Michigan State game, Roddy Gale was in there with Trey McKinney a lot. And then Namari Burnett took the back seat. So you have some options here. That's where Michigan's depth has really shown up.
Dusty May claims that he was I shouldn't say claims. He was a huge baseball fan until the lockout in 1994. But he uses a baseball comparison often when he talks about going to the bullpen and maybe your starting pitcher doesn't have it on a day and you bring in the bullpen guys to clean it up and ride out the game if you need to. I'm not really concerned who the starting 5 are. I think it's much more telling who is finishing these games. McKinney finished, games against Nebraska and Michigan State, and Will Cheddar was out there too in both of those games in clutch moments. So to me, that's a little more telling is who you trust with the game on the line as opposed to who you trust when the ball is tipped, because these games are living organisms. The matchups are different. The flow of the game is different. Foul trouble changes the equation at more than just the position of who may be in or out. So I wouldn't make that change. And I feel like I made this guarantee with Roddy Gale last year and it came true eventually, but I'll make the same one with Namari Burnett, is that the longer he struggles, the more likely he pays it off with interest further down the road. So I have no doubts that will happen at all.
There's a game for him, like Roddy Gale's in the tournament, right? When Roddy went off and he basically won that Texas A&M game for them. So Namari Burnett's going to have his moments. He's a huge part of this team, and he's a great leader. And I can't tell you how many times Dusty May has talked about how important that's been for these guys in this team. So that's exactly what you need.
All right, I'll move to another basketball question from the board. This is from Go Blue 2026 ! Wants actually to look ahead to next year. Who says, and he says, what does the basketball team look like next year in your opinion? The big 3 are all first-round mocks on ESPN right now. Do you see any of them staying, or will we have to go to the portal for front court help again with a McKinney and Cadeau backcourt?
Would it stun you guys if, say, they got bounced before, like in the Elite 8 or something like that, or maybe in the Final Four, if some of these bigs decided, hey, they're going to get their money anyway, they can come back for another year, another chance to be with this team? It wouldn't shock me at all. So Merez or Merez or Adai. Are we convinced that Adai is a first round pick? Boy, there's part of me that says, maybe, but he's still limited and he's got to add some strength. And so I'm not convinced that those guys will be gone. But if they are, what I am convinced of? That Dusty May is going to replace them, that you're going to see some of the young guys on this team develop. Oscar Goodman is a guy that he's talked about, and he said he's waiting his turn, but there might be more minutes for him next year. And what they love what he brings to the table in terms of his toughness, and he's got more offense than people give him credit for. He's bouncier than people give him credit for. So they're developing some guys too, fellas. It's not just like they're going to the portal and saying these guys are leaving. We got to replace them with portal guys. You're going to have 2 or 3 guys, maybe 4 sometimes, that are going to play significant minutes and continue to improve. So they go to the high school ranks, they go to the portal. So I have no question that Dusty May is already all over what he might need. That's the thing about him. It's not like this isn't just about the present. When he was talking about, for example, scouting other teams early in the Big Ten season to see how they might play him and play his team, you're like, this guy's ahead of the curve, and he knows he's always looking a step or 2 ahead. He's playing chess. And I know people use that a lot, but there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to be prepared, whoever comes back, and you're going to have some great pieces. I expect Cadeau to be back. I expect Trey McKinney to be back. So they're going to have some great pieces next year.
They've got a big staff that loves watching ball, and Dusty May was on College Game Day on Saturday and said it's an addiction watching hoops. And so then they're able to move quickly once the transfer portal opens because they have a level of familiarity with these players. They don't just look at the stats. They know, wait, that guy made this, all these mistakes in these games that I was watching, or no, he was grabbing every loose ball. Like the intangible things, they always say they want to recruit like it's January 30th. I'll use that date because they beat Michigan State that day. But in the offseason, everyone's interested in wingspan and, how high you can jump and all this stuff, but you got to take yourself back to what did we need on January 18th when we were in a grinded out 68 possession game with Wisconsin or something like that. So they're going to, I think, do a good job. And important to note too, this year, the transfer portal opens after the national championship game. Remember last year, the portal was open just before the Sweet 16. So they had to balance all of that week. So I think it's a good move, considering it made no sense that it was during the season to move it until after. But yeah, Adai Mara, I think he needs to become more physical. We've already seen the mobility improve. Morez Johnson, I think he could go, but man, I think he could polish his game a little bit more and be more of a go-to guy if he came back at Michigan and make money while doing it. Yaks, I mean, can you sue and try to get a 7th year out of him? No, obviously not. But no, it's going to be a different cast of characters. But as Dusty often talks about, what they were able to do last year with Vlad and Danny was, open doors for them, because then everyone's reaching out. Hey, I want to be a part of that. The way they use their big guys, they're doing things people say they can't do. You can't play 2 7-footers together. You can't play 3 bigs on the floor at the same time. 3 guys that were centers on their teams last year are all starting for Michigan right now. One of them has become basically a guard. So, these, to your point, Chris, like these players that enter the portal are, some of them are going to be lining up to try to get in at Michigan and play for this staff.
Again, I don't want to sound like an idiot here, but I think there's a non-zero chance that Morez Johnson is the highest drafted of any of these guys as early as this year, only because of the youth. The NBA, for whatever reason, acts like 23 or 24-year-olds are, have their ARP cards already. The Yaks is a better basketball player right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if, because of the youth and athleticism, that these teams love traits and upward mobility. So just something I've thought about. We've talked about that before, I think. We are 52 minutes into a show and have not talked any Michigan football yet, which is probably a record for us. Typically we lead with that even, but I do have a couple football questions here from the fort. This is from Old Crow Critter, who says, who is one guy on defense you think has the most room to improve and that good coaching will be able to bring out that potential that will make the biggest difference for the defense?
I'll let you go first, Clay.
So you get to think about it. All right.
No, I think Anoeta, to be honest with you, but he was coached by Lou Esposito last year. He'll be coached by him again, but I think he's got more to give. And they had him high on their board when they were deciding where the money's going to go. Okay. They knew how important it was to keep him. So he needs to be more of an impact player than he has been. I think they understand that, but they believe that he has it in him. So that would be one for me.
I'm going to go with Nathaniel Owusu Boateng. I think that he flashed some of that athleticism last year. I think he's going to have a pretty big role this season. He'll still have to battle, but linebacker is one of the more light position groups on this defense. He comes to mind for me right away. I just feel like he got a little taste of action at the end of last year because your linebackers were basically decimated for one reason or another. And, he was in there in some important playing time for Michigan last year. So I think he could take a big jump. He's got some upside.
I'm going to go with Jair Hill. I think he is supremely talented. I think he has all the traits of a guy who could be a very good cornerback at the next level. Talk about the length. The ball skills need to improve. He can make plays on the ball, but some of those tipped passes or dropped interceptions need to become interceptions. But I think he'll be better coached. I think he'll be more maturely coached, which I think is something that would be good for him as well. So that would be my pick on the defensive side of the ball. And Old Crow Critter also asks here, sorry, my voice is going on me for some reason. Assuming Marsh and Buchanan are options 1 and 2, who do you think steps up and becomes the third target for Bryce?
Boy, that's a tough one. I still think Hogan Hansen, if he's healthy, can give you a lot at tight end. I really do. I think he can be a 500-yard guy, fellas. And we've seen flashes from him. He just has to stay healthy. Everybody's like, well, if he hasn't stayed healthy at this point, well, there have been guys that have been hurt. Jimmy Rolder comes to mind, right, and didn't really reach his potential until a little bit later. So he's a guy that I can see. Jamie French, I guess. I obviously is a talented guy, so I could see him in there as well. So they spent a decent amount of money on him too. So We'll see how it plays out. I did want to add one thing to your Jair Hill comment, Anthony, in that I was really encouraged by the fact that he was named to that leadership council that they just came out with today, because that just shows how far he's come from a maturity standpoint off the field, and that his teammates start to think of him as that guy. So I think that's encouraging as well.
I was thinking the same thing. That's good. And it looks like, Michigan's best players are on that council for the most part. And you want your best players to be the hardest working guys on the team, the best leaders. So I think it's a good start for them in the spring. And I love how they're doing that as they establish this culture right away. Jamie French comes to mind right away because of what they invested in him. But I agree. Hogan Hansen is probably going to be third, because I do think a tight end naturally will be in the top 3. And it's only 1 year of him battling the injuries. If it starts to go into next year where he just can't stay on the field, then I would be a little bit more concerned. But I think unless something happens this offseason, he should be, which it did last offseason, but he should be healthy for the year and ready to go. And, he's only a redshirt sophomore this year because he redshirted this past season. So he's got a nice career ahead of him, I think. He's shown a lot in just, pretty sporadic playing time so far.
I'm going to go with the bird in hand of the tight ends. I know that Zach Marshall is probably going to be healthy next year, so I'm going to give him the nod there. Another guy who is on that leadership council, who we've gotten a couple questions about this after the fact. Michigan today named spring captains and a spring leadership council, which apparently is something that Whittingham did at Utah. They will get the team voted on this, by the way. They will do this again in fall camp with captains and a leadership council for the season. This is just for spring ball. I'm excited to ask about that when we finally get the chance to talk to him. As spring ball opens up on March 17th, spring game will be April 18th in Ann Arbor. So there's your save the date with those two events. But that is the difference right now. Michigan has not named its captains yet. Now then again, Rod Moore is on that. Trey Pierce is on that. Jordan Marshall, Bryce Underwood, sophomore, kind of surprising, but we'll see if that holds up through the spring. But I didn't think that was
captains. Yeah,
those are the 4 captains. There are, I believe, 7 other guys who are on the council. There's a story on that on the front page. I didn't think that was worth adding to the topic list today, but
you want me to read them?
Bringing up
just so people know.
Yeah, go ahead and read them.
Nico Andrighetto, safety. Zeke Berry, Cam Brandt, Mason Curtis, Eno Etta, Blake Frazier, Jake Warnera, Jair Hill, Andrew Marsh, Zach Marshall, and Andrew Spike. That's the leadership council in addition to the 4 captains Anthony named. So, yeah, it's kind of your best, 14 players or whatever it is. And Nico Andrighetto. No offense.
Yeah, that one was surprising to me. Super chat here for $1.99. Is Clayton really 6'10"? And I say yes, because I'm 6'2", and you see how he towers over me in these games.
Which
can I explain that one?
Which makes me 6'3".
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Let me explain that one. So we did the show on the court at the Jack Breslin Student Events Center on Friday night after Michigan's 12-point win over Tom Izzo's crew. They got outclassed in that game, and we were talking about it. And yeah, like I am, pretty tall, so Anthony's not as short as some people were saying in the comments. Someone said, like, how tall is Anthony? Like 5'1", 5'2", or something. I said, no, Safey is 6'10". To save my boy. So I was boosting my boy there. I was pumping his tires a little.
I'll just say you split the difference on that.
Have you ever dunked over Anthony, Clay?
No.
Yeah, he's only 6'10" guy that can't dunk. So.
Right. Yeah. Now it's even worse that I can't dunk. Come on.
All right. I think that's a good note to end on. I know Dusty Mate's radio show coming up here. Clay will get over to that here, but good basketball fueled show tonight. Probably more of those coming as Big Ten race heats up. March is right around the corner. February is here already. And then we'll see if we take this thing all the way through April. And now, I mean, it's year round because, like you said, the transfer portal will open right after the national championship game. So we're going to have a quick rebound from April 6th into April 7th. I'll just say that. But that's going to do it for us tonight. Be sure to like this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more from us, whether it be the podcast, whether it be the post-game shows, whether it be the press conferences. It's all there for you. So head on over to the Wolverine YouTube channel. You're here already if you're watching on video. And subscribe to us. It helps us pop up in your algorithm. All right. Well, for Chris Ballas, Clayton Safey, our producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broom. Thanks you so much for watching. We'll talk to you again Thursday.